Welcome to Ion Radio. I'm going to give it a second and see if chat can hear me and if everything's working right. So if you can hear me and the audio sounds good, post a comment in chat. It's probably like a 10-second delay, so it'll be just a minute. So today is August 2nd, and this is going to be the first episode of what I'm calling Backseat Admiral. Perfect. Thank you, Max. Okay, so let's talk about what Backseat Admiral is. So I came up with this idea kind of last week, and this is a little bit last minute as I'm trying to get everything together for it. Backseat Admiral is going to be kind of like a live stream strategy talk, list building, answer questions, and reflect back on the last episode of Star Wars Armada that we release. That's why I'm in the back seat judging what Ken and I do. So I've been wanting to be releasing strategy videos for quite a while now. And honestly, it's a time commitment because I really want it to be good for you guys, and I want to script it out and then have like overlays and everything like that. And it becomes a daunting process. I've been working on an idea since I think almost February, and this year's just flying by. Life and work and life is just so busy. So I decided to use this as a means to do it. So I didn't really know where to start, so I decided to start about talking about gameplay styles and how that's really important to understand who you are in a game, especially like Armada, because sometimes it's a really rough slope to learn Armada, and you're going to lose a lot before you get better. So to talk about Armada, we're going to talk about Magic the Gathering first, because they did lots of research into different player types. And I think it's important to understand what type of player you are. So the first type of player is the Timmy Tammy type player. And they're the type of players that like to do big combos, and they like having fun. There's a couple different subgenres of them. There's the power gamers. I don't think I need to explain that. The social gamers that are just there, I'll have my turn, you have your turn. And then the adrenaline junkies that live on the fact of spells and flipping things and coins. As you can guess, that's not the type of player I am. Dice don't like me. I don't try to take any risks like that. Then the second type of player is the Johnny Jenny, which this is the player that I think I am the most. They like building lists. That's honestly the part of Armada that I love the most, is list building. I think right now on my phone I use the Star Wars Armada Android app, which is a fantastic app and you should all use it. But I think I have like 60 plus lists, and 40 of them have never seen the table yet. So every couple of months I just hard reset it and delete everything. So I just make lists. That's what I enjoy doing. So I fall into this type of thing. I try to find combos. I enjoy designing lists, and I enjoy the challenge of taking a certain type of card and trying to make it work. And sometimes I just do that. The entire thing is built for like one purpose. Later on the season, or did we release it? I don't know, everything starts blurring. There's an E-Wing list. Why? Are E-Wings good? No. But I designed an entire list around the idea that I wanted to use an E-Wing. And so that's how I go about playing Armada. Let's keep talking about other types of players. There's the Spike player, which for me they're a lot of the tournament players. They make lists, again, they take net lists from the internet and then they fine-tune them to be even better. So they're like that Spike power up. I have a little bit of this in me, but I'm mainly a Johnny. And then you have two like how you like games, which are the Melvin and the Vorroth. And they kind of just look at games not from how they play it, but why kind of they play it. And like the Melvin, they look at game mechanics and how the game mechanics look together, versus a Vortho that looks at more of the theme. So that's kind of like a sliding scale. Like everyone's a little bit of everything. So I think we're all in Armada because of the theme. But I look at cards from a mechanical aspect, not necessarily a theme aspect. While Ken a lot of times is more of a Vorthos, and he looks at things from a theme mechanic than like game mechanics. And you can actually see that in some of our lists. He will make a Star Destroyer and be like, but these are the weapons that the Star Destroyer has, because that's what he enjoys doing. That's who he is as a player. And it's important to understand that we're all coming to a game with different thoughts and different ideas and different reasons to be playing. I feel that a lot of times Armada is very much so, this is the competitive scene and that's the only way to play Armada, which it's just not the case. Winning and losing is a big part of the game, but it's not the end all to the game. So you have to find why you enjoy playing a game, and for me it's list building. So I build a list, I decide this is what I want to try to do with this list. So let's look at the Plo Koon list. I had a couple things that I wanted to try. I really wanted to try Ahsoka, and I just love Y-Wings, and I wanted to bring Y-Wings to the table and see if I could make it work. So those are what I fashioned that entire list around. And then to see if I could do it. If I could get Ahsoka off once and make her work, that's a win to me. That's exciting. That's why I built that entire list. Winning or losing, it doesn't really matter after that. My enjoyment from making that list is just to see if I can get that combo or that effect off. So looking at that, I think we all need to just figure out what type of player we are and the type of players that we have around us, because it might change the way that we play and build lists and interact with people as a whole. We're not all competition players. And some of us really just like the theme of Star Wars. Some of us are fine making super competitive lists. And some of us just want to slap ships on the table and pew pew and shoot things up. So, do you guys in chat have any thoughts about that? I'll give you a second because 10-second delay. And everyone, welcome in chat. I'm glad that people showed up to listen to me ramble a little bit. And so that's really the majority of what I had strategy prepared this week, because it was short planning period. I'm going to have more for the next episode and try to figure out what people want to see as strategy, but I figured this would be a good place to start, because you need a foundation. And I think understanding why you're playing a game is important, because then strategy for that game then can make sense coming from what perspective people are coming from. Okay, let's see. Max says that he likes list building and campaign, and lower point games are his favorite. I agree. Lower point games are just change the dynamic of it. Fewer activations, different ships, and list building. It's the best. Let's see. Baseball Nut. Same as me. List building. Honestly, Armada has such a good list building mechanic and everything. Yes, I would agree with that. Armada, even the competitive side, is pretty chill compared to other games. That is very true. Mirkwood. Yeah, I just enjoy... So, a story that goes along with that. When I first started playing Armada, I was excited about it. I came from Star Wars Attack Wing when it was out, and I played heavily into that until the group, some of the key members that were in my local group, like, moved away, and I really didn't have a Star Wars Armada group. Ken and I met, and we started playing, and it was just us. It was like waves into the game that we both just collected it because we loved the ships. And hold on, I gotta move my screen a little bit. There we go. And we were waves into the game starting to play. We had followed things online and things like that. And then, sadly, that game store that we played at closed. So I was looking for another Armada group, and I found one of our local game stores. It's called Fair Games. And that's actually the store that the Can't Get Your Ship Out guys fly at. So here's me, brand pretty much new, less than 10 games of Armada, showing up at one of the most highly competitive game groups in the entire country. And I got beat down again and again and again. And that's when I realized that just trying to win, that becomes frustrating if your only goal is to win, because you're not going to always win. It's a dice game, for one, so things can just randomly start changing and going into other directions. And that's when I'm like, I'm just going to build a fun list. Just a fun list with a gimmick. And my entire goal for that game, win or lose, because I'm probably going to lose, is I'm going to get that gimmick off. And it made it a lot of fun because I could play a fast game, get completely tabled and not care, because my whole point of playing this game was just to get that thing off. I did a lot of shenanigans with like overloaded pulse and boarding troopers, which is just hilarious when people don't expect it because it's not good. And you're like, okay, overloaded pulse, get rid of all your defense tokens. Yes, I would agree with that, Muzzy. The long-term planning for Armada is very good, and I actually build that into when I'm building a list. I a lot of times think about every single command that ship should be taking on what turn. Thank you very much. Yes, everyone, thank you. We've hit 2,000 subscribers this weekend, and Ken and I are both super, super excited for that. We never thought that we would be able to hit 1,000, let alone 2,000. So thank you very much for all subscribing, and hope you guys stay around for our content. Ken and I have lots of more content planned. And Bradley, I would agree. Just throwing cards down doesn't really work. Sometimes you would show up at a store and people are like list building before the event starts. Please don't do that. If you show up at a store, respect for other players involves having a list prepared beforehand, so then you're not wasting their time, you're not wasting the store's time, and you're not wasting your time as well. Okay, so let me switch over and let's talk about our last episode that we released, Martuk vs. Plo Koon. There we go. Okay, so this was our Season 1, Episode 5. Ken was flying Martuk, and I was playing as Plo Koon. So I'm going to go over my fleet first, and then I'll touch base and make some critiques on Ken's list as well. Let me see where this is. I've taken some screenshots from our video so that I can show you guys just the different cards, the different ships, and things like that. To Krogomang, my favorite point value actually is 400 points. I wouldn't mind if Armada went up to like 500 points, because then I could have all my ships and my squadrons and eat my cake too. But the 400 points is a good point to be able to get some fleet variance in. I feel like 300 is very restrictive, especially with Commander. 200 is very restrictive. Campaign, you either have random ships or very, very, what do I want to call it? Optimized fleets. So that doesn't necessarily always line up well with other players. Okay, here we go. So this is my Plo Koon fleet. It's got a Venator, a Pelta, a Counselor, and as many Y-Wings as I could fit in, with some Torrents to protect Loom. So if you can, it just keeps everything alive a little bit better. So let's look at it. Some nice paint jobs. I went with the green for all my protection and the yellow for my Y-wings. And I love the look of the Republic ships. So here's the flagship. So for those of you that don't know, Plo Koon is a 26-point commander, and his ability reads, while a friendly squadron is attacking a ship at distance 1 to 3 of a friendly ship, the attacker may add 1 blue dice set to an accuracy to its attack pool. The die cannot be re-rolled or changed. Friendly squadrons without Adept, that's the Jedi trait, gain grit while they are at distance 1 of a friendly squadron with Adept. He is probably my favorite fighter commander for the Republic that's currently out there. If you guys have watched, obviously, sorry, this is spoilers if you haven't watched our episode that we released on Friday. But the first attack, I just got so excited, I did 3 from my ship instead of my ship being 3 away from the ship that we are attacking. My mistake, we corrected in the thing. But taking that commander, the way I list builded that is clearly I want to have something that's going to be reliably attacking ships with fighters. So we're going to be a fighter build, clearly. Preferably bomber, but honestly, Torrents with their black dice, it's 75% hit anyway. So I decided to go with Y-Wings. So Y-Wings were going to be the foundational fighter that I was going to be using. I was just going to spam them out. Then his second part of the key is you need squadrons with Adept. And so you can either add in the Jedi Aces or you can add in just the random Delta 7s. And I decided to add in Luminara because I like her ability. And she's just going to help keep everything alive around her. And then I added 2 Torrents to help protect her. The next card that I was doing for this build, this is like where I'm like, this is the only thing I would really like to get work. So Plo Koon was one of them. And then the second card was Ahsoka Tano because I've never used her before. And so Ahsoka is when you do a squadron command, each of up to 3 non-unique squadrons that you activate gain Snipe 1 for each die in their anti-squadron armament to a maximum of Snipe 3 until the end of the activation. So what's cool about this is those 2 Torrents that I brought along, mainly to protect Luminara, become snipe ships. And that combos really well with Plo Koon because if you move a fighter in and engage Luminara, and I have a Torrent there, well, the Torrent then, if it's only engaged with 1, can move away and then snipe at that target, and it gets swarmed because you're close to Luminara. That's great. So I use that with flight controllers as this idea of, even with a Y-Wing, I don't care, like, we could snipe and we could kill things at farther range, which then should be able to clear out all the nonsense swarm, because we're seeing so much counter in recent days with TIE Interceptors, A-Wings, and Tri-Fighters, that would be a good counter to those style of lists, especially those nasty Separatist Aces. Dis and Flak, those guys are jerks. And yeah, you see in the episode that it worked pretty well, so I'm pretty happy about that. I have flight controllers on there just because, obviously, most of my stuff is going to be doing from damage from my bombers to my ships. And flight controllers on Y-Wings is super respectable with 2 blues and a black dice. Like, that's hitting pretty hard. That's like hitting as hard as a Vulture droid is, but I have 6 hull, and I don't care if you attack me back. The Venator 2, with its 5 squadron activation, I can push a majority of my list all at once. Boosted comms means that ship has a huge radius that he can attack. I really didn't know what to do with the defensive retrofit, but I just put electronic countermeasures there for the chance that if I needed it, I could 100% use my brace for 1 turn to try to survive. I like doubling down. So if I'm a fighter build, I like doubling down on the fact that I'm going to kill fighters. That's why I put ordnance pods there. So if you get close to me and I have like my Y-wings surrounding my Venator, I should be able to flak out for free and help clear that the other player's fighter screen so that I can get to bombing faster. Then link turbo laser towers. I don't trust red dice, so I include some way to re-roll them or set them in some way possible. And then finally, the resolute, I can put squadron tokens onto my ship after doing a squadron, and clearly I'm going to be doing squadrons with a Ven-2 with a Y-wing bomb. So that can either be used to clear off a raid if you're facing a raid fleet, or it can be used to increase up to the 6 squadrons that you can use. So that's kind of how I designed this Ven-2. Let me look at comments real fast, and then we'll go on to the next ship. Yes, Plo Koon's going to be very good as soon as there's a ship with printed assault. And I agree. I think commanders are best balanced for 400. Personally, this is just my opinion, but I think everyone should be condensed to be like 20 to 30-ish points. Some of the commanders, their prices are like way too high for what they do. But then you also have Akbar when you're like, oh yeah, Akbar's worth every single point that you pay for him. But like Emperor Palpatine, he's not worth his points. Get the Wolf combo. That's on my list of things to try soon. Agate at 200 is wild, and Thrawn at 600 is stupid. Yes. The higher the points, some commanders become crazy broken. So the reason why I don't build anti-ship for this is my bombers locked down means that I'm doing 0 damage. And the faster that I can kill off all the squadrons means that my fighters have more health when I engage the enemy ships. And I can get to it faster. Because most of the time, if you're facing a full fighter build, you're going to be locked in fighter combat for turns 2, 3, and partial 4 for the most part. That's why alpha striking in and being able to knock out the opponent's fleet quicker is so very, very important. And how can I say it? If I can do that faster and focus all my ships on killing all the squadrons, I have 8 Y-wings. That is, if I get damage, that's 8 single points of damage that will go through. And with Plo Koon, I can set an accuracy so you're not using redirects. So that is boom, 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 right through your shields into your hull. And if I get a double, I get a double. And that's even better. But my damage potential for this list isn't getting up close and personal with things, which is what the ordnance slot is. It's me trying to kill off all the squadrons as fast as possible. If you go back, I don't remember our episode number, but I play a Bale list with two acclimators, and Ken plays his Sato, I believe, list. You see that I had on that list Ruthless Strategist, and I just plinked all of his squadrons down as fast as I could, taking damage to my Y-wings with flak and ordnance pods, and I think I wiped out pretty much his entire fighter wing in 1-ish turn, because then all my fighters could just focus on bombing the rest of the game. So let's go over to the next ship. And after playing this game and finally getting out into the open public and playing people that aren't Ken and seeing other builds, actually would change this ship if I were to redo this fleet. This ship is really, really simple. It's a Pelta. It has bomber command because I have 8 Y-wings, and re-rolling blanks into trying to get a hit or a double is really good. It didn't really work out for me a lot of times. My blanks went into blanks, and that's always frustrating. And then I have TB73 on there, which gives me an extra evade defense token, which is just good at keeping it alive. I don't think it would have survived as long as it did if it didn't have this card. But let's talk about what I would change. So I would flip to the other type of... Let me grab my list. I actually made it up earlier. So I actually made it up earlier. So I would switch it over from the medical frigate to the transport. And I can tell you why I used the medical frigate in this to begin with, is because I was a squadron build and I wanted to be able to push squadrons. And the medical frigate has 2 squadrons compared to the transport, which has 1 squadron that it can activate. And what I would do instead is I would take the transport frigate, I would take bomber command, because that's the reason why I'm having it, and then I would put reactive gunnery on it. I got messed up recently when I played someone with all these peltas with reactive gunner, and I would like to do it right back. It makes it a target that you don't really want to shoot at, but you kind of have to shoot at. And then I would keep the title, and it comes out to be exactly the same points. I think overall that that would be a better ship. Let me look back to see if there's anything in chat, and then we'll go on to the last ship in my fleet. Yes, Ken and I do have very streaky dice damage. It's either all blanks or all hits. It frustrates me beyond belief. Like, it makes me not want to attack any of his ships that have red flag salvo, because he's like, 1 dice, 2 damage. I'm like, I did not calculate in needing 2 damage at this time. Go ahead and re-roll it. Another double. And you're like, I don't want to brace it. My ship's going to take more fire. I can't use a brace on this. I don't want to redirect it. I guess I'm just going to take the 2 damage. And the reason why I like fighters is Star Wars kind of is like a World War II-esque space game that in World War II is like, it was a fighter game in the Pacific. And it was the Japanese and the United States sparring between carrier groups and battleships with the fighters, because if you could get your fighters over their ships, they're gone. So it was just anti-fighter. I love fighter play. It's probably my favorite type of play. So, yes, it's pretty much always like that. It's not just our videos. I actually roll better, though. Not on camera. In recent games I've played, I actually get doubles into doubles, and it's a beautiful thing. But my dice have always been streaky. I have lost countless of the tournament games that I've gone to. My biggest streaks in my memory is I needed 1 damage to go through, and I would have won my game at the LVO when the LVO actually last took place, and I would have advanced on. I would have been pretty high up there, actually. And I rolled a dice. It was a bomber. Blank. Re-rolled it with bomber command into a blank, but that wasn't the end. I still had 1 more bomber. Blank. Into a blank. So it was 4 blanks in a row when I needed 1 damage to kill his ship, and it would have given me the victory. And I believe that player ended up going on to take 3rd or 4th in the entire tournament, and I'm like, that could have been me! But that was a really good game. Okay, and that's also why I built so much dice mitigation in, because dice games. Okay, so my last ship. This is it's an activation. It's an activation, and it's a get out of jail free card because of the upgrades that it has on it. It has Clone Navigational Officer, so I can pass a token to a big ship to counteract raid, or just allow me when I can, if I really need a nav or need an engineering to redo my electronic countermeasures. I also gave it the Radiant 7 title and gave it Comms Nut as well, because sometimes you just want to really pass out tokens. The fun thing with Clone Navigational Officer is, let's say I reveal a nav, I take it, I reveal it, I throw with Clone Navigational Officer over to my Venator, and then I take the dial and I turn it into a token, and then I comms that token over to the Pelta. Now all my ships have tokens, so it's just a really versatile ship. Or if I need it as a dial to survive, then I can keep it and not comms net it and then just pass it over with the Clone Navigation. This is really not meant to do anything in the game except for be an activation and pass out tokens. So the last part of my list is the fighters. So we have Luminara, and her ability is, while an enemy squadron at distance 1 is attacking a non-unique friendly squadron, the attack is treated as obstructed. So if you noticed, I have a lot of generic squadrons. So she becomes very valuable. And do you really want to be attacking a Jedi with Adept, Encounter, and Scatter when you have looming toward you 8 Y-Wings and Torrents? No. So, also, do you really want to be attacking Y-Wings when you're obstructed? Like, it's already a ton of health. That just becomes a pain to deal with. With Plo, she gives everyone grit. So those fighters can move around just fine. The 2 Torrents are there to protect her and to protect the bombers and to get some sweet, sweet sniping. And the Y-Wings are kind of just the cornerstone of this list. So that is pretty much my list and the way I had designed it, and then a way I would change it if I were to replay the fleet today. It's a fleet that's very happy going first, because activating 6 Y-Wings into you at once is beautiful. And it's very happy going second, because Y-Wings aren't going to be killed by an Alpha Strike. And then I'm going to use my squadrons and my flak to attack your squadrons. Or if you've moved your ship close, I'm just going to move in and bomb you as second player. Let me talk about my objectives, and then I'll go back to the game. Actually, I don't remember. Did I choose to be first, or did I choose to be second? Let's just go with the fact that I think I chose to be second player. So these are the objectives, and I'll explain why I chose them. Precision Strike is great when you have bombers, as you saw in the game. You could just flip cards, deal cards, get points. It's fun. I don't need the Concentrate Fire tokens. A lot of people will take this card. Thank you. Yes, I believe Ken did choose to be first player. There's really, like I said, this fleet doesn't care, so it just does what it is. Okay, so Precision Strike. I don't care about the Concentrate Fire token. And I don't care. I'll just get rid of it. I don't need it. My ships aren't the things that are doing damage. And for the most part, I don't need it to power anything. I have 8 bombers that can fuel the token collection, so that makes it a very rough choice. Moving on to Contested Outpost now. Contested Outpost is a great objective. Here's a station. Come get me. You have to fly through a swarm of 8 Y-Wings and other fighters with a couple ships shooting at you to get to the station. And then you have to move me off the station. And I'm just fine sitting here. Sitting here all game long, collecting 20 points a turn. And that's why it's there. Because if you were to look at this, you have to decide, can I kill enough of you fast enough that I can deny you that 120 points? Or counteract how many points I'm getting for that? Like, if it's going to last 6 turns and I'm going to get 5 of those tokens. That's 100 points. Are you going to be able to make up 100 points of killing me? So basically at that point, you have to decide, if you're going to play Contested Outpost, you better come ready to table me. And it's going to be a challenge because I have big ship, I have token passing, I could fly ships over here, and then just let you get eaten by Y-Wings. And Y-Wings, they stand up pretty well. The last objective is superior positions, because I like making the other player deploy first. And then I can set up however I want to counter that. And that is really the reason it's there. And then as a side note to that, I also get points if I attack you in the rear. And I have lots of opportunities with Event 2 and all the bombers to just plink damage and get 15 points a game. I think, me looking at this objective choice, I think the worst objective choice on this list, if I was handed these cards, would probably be superior positions. And that's because deploying your entire fleet first sucks. And it gives so much information away to the other player, and it eliminates an ability to counterplay. So if I was playing this exact fleet, was first player, and was handed these cards, I would not choose it. I have, I think, 11 fighters, so that's 5 activations down, and for the most part, that will be able to outdeploy any fleet. So I put down the activation Corvette, and so that's 1, and then I plop out fighters for the next 5 turns. Most of the time, you'll see fighters max out around 6 or 8, so that's 3 to 4. So you're putting down your big ships before my Venator goes down. And this means that I have to deploy everything, and then you can counter-deploy me, and then it becomes, are we going to get points off of it? And it's frustrating for me. It would be a hard pick for me between Precision Strike and Contested Outpost. If I didn't have the bombers, I would never pick Precision Strike, because then it's unlimited point farming. So if you figure that out versus... versus Contested Outpost. If the other player got all 120 points of Contested Outpost versus the Precision Strike, they only need 8 tokens to equal that. So the likelihood that they're going to get 8 tokens over the course of the game is very, very high. So they're going to be scoring more points than that. Personally, I would take Contested Outpost because I'm here to rumble and let's table you. And if I can block you, Contested Outpost gives out the least amount of points, and at least I know where you're going to be on the table. So I believe Ken chose Precision Strike, and not necessarily because he thought it was necessarily the best choice. He honestly gets tired of me handing him the same cards every single time. So he hadn't played that recently, and he had a lot of smaller ships, and he thought that he could ping damage through, because ships and bombers are the ones that can activate that ability. So now let's look at Ken's list. If you have any questions on any of this, throw it in the comments, and I'll answer it as I get to it. Okay. So Ken was playing Martuk. He had a Munificent Star Frigate, kind of fully decked out, a hard sell battle refit, a hard sell battle refit, and a hard sell battle refit. And then he brought that 6, remember I was mentioning it, 6 is kind of like where most people land with fighters, 6 droid TIE fighters with counter, which this is actually a very solid fighter screen, because you don't want to attack it. It's like, I attack you, do I kill you? Cool, I take free damage. I attack you, cool, I take free damage. And if you don't attack it, then they're actually really good at killing your squads. Yes, the other 2 objectives allow the opponent to... I'm sorry, I'm jumping back to chat. The other 2 objectives also allow the opponents to score points, while... Contested Outpost, it's just you, unless they can get more on it than you. So let's dive more into this list, ship by ship. Let me find where that picture is. Okay, so here's his flagship. It is a Munificent Star Frigate. It has Martuk. Martuk's ability is I'm going to just summarize it instead of read it. If you have shields on your facing, he gets to add a red die. If you don't have shields on that facing, he's neutral and doesn't do anything. If you have no shields anywhere on your ship, he has to cancel a die. So that cancel takes place after the roll. So it's kind of a benefit, kind of not. So you roll your dice and you're like, oh, there's a blank. Toss that out of the way. He is probably one of the most popular Separatist commanders right now because he's just good. Every single shot, if you have shields, he does something. And most of the times you're not completely draining shields on a ship. Somewhere on the ship there's shields. And then Xiao Mei, I'm not a big fan of this card. And I'm not sure I'm a fan of it on a Munificent that already has linked turbo laser towers. I think I think it's a she. We'll go with a she. I think she is better on a Recusant, but that's me. But I'm not a huge fan of trying to predict, because every time I try to predict the rounds that I needed, 100% those rounds will come up as all hits, and the other ones won't. So for me, that's just kind of frustrating. Fighter coordination team that allows you to move squadrons forward. I don't necessarily think it's needed with a tri-fighter list. Early warning systems, which came into big play in this game. Point defense ion cannons also came into use in this game. Linked turbo laser towers. I don't really even think I really need to mention it with the Munificent, because honestly, just staple it right to the card. Keep it in the binder right next to it. And then the title Sa Nelador. I don't actually think Ken used it in the game. This is a very highly decked out Munificent. Personally, I would drop Xiao Mei because I already have linked turbo laser towers. I would drop fighter coordination team because my fighters are speed 5 and I can just get them wherever I want. And I would drop the title because it involves you spending one of your 3 defense tokens for a different effect, and you pretty much want all the effects that your tokens already have, because you want to salvo, you want to redirect, and you want to be able to brace. That would bring it a little bit cheaper. I do like point defense ion cannons on it because it's the flagship. And as you saw, I would hit a double, Ken would make me re-roll it. So it saved him quite a bit of damage over the course of the game. Early warning systems can block out complete shield zones from fighters, unless they're double like armament fighters. But honestly, you just want to find a different hull zone at that point, because you don't want to lose half your dice when you're rolling in. That's just no fun. Okay, let me look at chat, and then we'll move on to the next ship. Hey, Scala, how's it going? What is my favorite counter fighter? That would probably be the TIE Interceptor. I love the TIE Interceptor, especially... Hold on. Let's take a step back for a second. In a build designed for using those fighters, my favorite fighter is the TIE Interceptor, because I would pump up the number so it's like counter 4 or 5 or something absurd. What fighter do I think is actually the best? That is probably the A-Wing. It has higher health, same speed, a little bit lower normal attack, but it has the counter. And it has the black dice to attack ships if they don't have ships. Tri-fighters need to be activated, while A-Wings can go in solo if they want. So that's my answer. Yeah, I agree. Black dice. And the 4 hull. Yeah, everyone, the chat already got my comments down. Yes, I like all the factions. I'm a list builder. I just tinker with everything. Originally, I liked the CIS more than the Republic. I'm finding myself playing more Republic now because it's more of a puzzle fleet than CIS, and I just like tinkering. So I bounce back and forth which one I prefer. Okay, second ship. It is a hard sell battle refit. It has TI-99, which I will get to in a second. It has expanded hangar bay, and I think that's just because Ken wanted 1 round of upping the numbers to attack. Personally, I would probably drop that. And then the linked turbo laser towers, because it's stapled to everything that has red dice. So between us recording, us releasing, and today, TI-99 has had 2 major things that have come up with it and have been posted to the AMG rules forum. So between us recording and releasing it, there was a ruling. And then between our releasing it last Friday and today, there was a different ruling. So this actually ruling came up, I believe, from a conversation that myself and Demon Troll had on our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, here's a plug. Join our Discord. I'm up all night because I work nights. Ken's up all days because he's a normal person. And so you pretty much can get access to us at any time of the day. So the conversation was about Dutch Vander, and if he could turn off TI-99's ability on fighters. And I never thought about that before. I don't think many people have. So I thought it through logically, and I threw it up on the main Armada Discord to see what other people thought about that as well. And I think Dross, he's one of the big rules people, basically told me his interpretation, and I hadn't shared my interpretation yet, and it was the same. So his abilities, while a friendly unactivated squadron is at distance 1 to 3, it gains counter 3, or if it has a printed counter keyword, gains an additional counter 1 after it performs a counter attack. Toggle its activation slider to the activated side. So we're this interesting combination with Dutch Vander, which obviously isn't in this game because he's a rebel. If Dutch does damage and you're unactivated, you become activated. And the original ruling on the AMG was that you would still be able to counter using TI-99, which I don't think was right, because if you read through, let me pull it up really fast, the definition of counter. Here it is. It reads, after a squadron performs a non-counter attack against you. That's really right there where the answer lies. You may attack that squadron with an anti blah 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 blah. So after a squadron performs a non-attack. So that means you declare an attack, you make sure line of sight and everything's good with that. Attacker gathers their dice, attacker rolls their dice, attacker modifies their dice, the defense gets to modify dice / to spend defense tokens, damage is dealt. As the damage is getting dealt, that's when Dutch's ability triggers, and it is, if it triggers and you're not activated, then activate. That's now the end of the attack. So if he's activated, you're now activated. After the attack is when counter comes into play. And when you go to counter, because counter doesn't care that it existed before the attack, it cares if it exists right now after the attack, which is when TI then goes to the check. While a friendly unactivated squadron is at distance 1 to 3, it gains counter 3. So at this point that it's checking to see if it has counter, he can't give it to them because the attack activated them. If you already had counter, you can counter as normal, but because you're activated, his power doesn't trigger back toward you. That's my little fun tidbit, and that is what it has now been ruled officially on the AMG forum, I believe, as of today, but going between nights and days, everything kind of gets a little bit blurry. Okay, next ship. It's a hard sell battle refit with Link Turbo Laser Towers. Gotta love this ship. Beast of Burden is on here. It is a good title. I struggle to use it because you use it when you activate, and they have to be at distance 3, so you almost have to, like, it's a positioning thing. So you want it to be, you want a ship that you're going to refresh the tokens on, like, in front of you. And a lot of times you want to activate that ship to, because close range is better than no range. So you want to activate that ship. But then you might be too far away from it. So you have to, like, position it carefully close to the ship to be able to do it before you then move. Because a lot of times, a lot of the abilities we think of, oh, I'll need to be there, and then you, like, move your fleet like this. Well, this guy needs to be very close to the fleet to do it. Okay. What? It's a hard sell. And it has Link Turbo Lasers on it, because it's a great card. And it has Foreman's Labor. This one, Ken actually uses a lot, and you'll see it in the future. It's a good card, and it'll save you that 1 damage for a turn. And hard sells are already super frustrating to attack and kill, at least for me. I always leave them on, like, 1 freaking health, but I leave everything on 1 freaking health. Or it just, like, its defense suite is very good, and that 5 hull's really annoying. So you're thinking of it as a small ship, but it's actually kind of as tanky as some medium ships. And I always it takes in my head when I'm playing, I'm like, I'll dedicate so many attacks to this, so many attacks to that, and it should mathematically kill it. And it just doesn't, and this throws it off one more little bit off from what I'm calculating in my head, and that's frustrating. Okay, so his fighters, we've already kind of discussed them. 6 droid TIE fighters, they're very good. I would have to do the points. I didn't have time to do that, but if you dropped all those upgrades that I talked about, you might be able to squeeze in some of the droid tri-fighter aces, which I think are some of the best aces in the entire game right now. They're just fun to use, and they're terrible to play against, but you kind of know that they're terrible to play against, so the one I just call disrespect, because you bring it in, it just completely disrespects all of your opponent's aces. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts on both fleets. I'm going to go to chat, and then I'll go through pictures and talk through the game real fast. Let's see. I wish Clone... Yes, I wish Clone Wars had a larger array of ships too. Maybe in the future we'll see some. Maybe we won't. But I think either way right now, they're at a pretty healthy point of... You have a lot of different options, and most of their ships are very, very versatile and can be used for different functions. And I think that's a good sign for those ships. I do also believe that LTTs need a nerf, but it's hard to decide on how to do that. Honestly, I think breaking off the being able to attack a squadron with added dice would be fine. Take that off. I would still use the card just for re-rolling red dice. And then make a different card that, hey, you can just attack squadrons once a turn and add more dice into it. That would probably be a good thing. There are other things that need to be adjusted. Sorry, onagers. Oof, yeah, I think I got that bug. It makes the hard sell so much tougher than the neb. Just the redirect. The redirect does a lot. A lot. And the neb actually is more survivable than it used to be with the new evade. I'm not saying that it's very survivable. And I also think the firing arcs help that too. So if we look over here at the firing arcs, it's more of like a mini... I'll call it Star Destroyer firing arc. So it's harder to get a front shot from its front. Let me start that over and use English. It's harder from the front of it to get a side shot, while the neb has those giant arc lines, kind of like you see on this Munificent here. And if you're in the front slightly to the edge, you can shoot into its side. And it has one shield and no redirect, and it just goes straight through it. While the hard sell, its arc lines are lined up so that you could just fly forward and have the front just facing it. And then it has that redirect to save it from just getting obliterated straight through the side. Okay, let me see. I have more screenshots. Let's pull up this. Okay, here we are with our turn 0, and it is when we're done deploying. So I did what I talked about. I dropped my free activation Corvette ship, because that's what it is, down in the middle of the table, and then I plopped all my bombers and fighters right there, and that ate up a ton of activations. Or deployments. Actually, it's deployments at this time. And that's cool. So Ken pretty much had to deploy most of his stuff first. And then as soon as I figure out where like a flagship is, I can then dedicate that to be the Venator. And I honestly just lined up the Venator because with a lot of hard sells, I know I'm going to get rammed. And I know I'm going to be ramming. So I didn't really put it too close to my side. I kind of put it right where I think I would have been when the attack and the fight takes place. Right there. Actually, can you see my mouse? I don't know if you can see my mouse. I'll just circle it. So if you look, if I go slow, speed 1, it takes me to about here. Speed 2, turn 2, I should be sitting somewhere on the station, which helps protect my ship, and then I can just do ramming. And what's fun about this mission in ramming is as soon as you get a damage card, my bombers and my ships can discard dice to flip it. Sooner the points, the better. So there's that. And then the Pelta, which is really just Bomber Command and support, I kept off to the side. And if I switched it out for what I had normally, I could have probably put it closer to the battle because I would get some salvo attacks. But it's fine where it is. Ken deployed centrally, which is a good idea as first player anyway, so then I can't just like hide my ships and automatically win with a 6-5, which we wouldn't do because this is a YouTube channel and people want to see dice thrown. So let's go to the next turn. As you can see, my fighters now... let's go back for a second and just see. So I'm fine dropping all my fighters down in the center of the board. They're speed 3. They're not going to be able to hit the opponent's ships or fighters on turn 1, so I'm not worried about activating them. I can centrally locate them and then shift them into the direction I need them at the end of turn 1 for turn 2, which is what we see. So you can see all the fighters shifted over and are preparing for their bombing runs the next turn when ships start getting activated into them. And I have hid now behind the station to protect my ship. Now I have EWS 2, Ken. Look at that. And then the idea is, if you look, his ships that are coming up probably won't be able to take the station, and I would still be able to move speed 1 and land on the station, which then heals me from the ram damage that I'm probably going to be inflicting. And look at that! That's kind of exactly what I talked about. I love trying to get double arcs with Venators compared to like ISDs. Like ISD double arcs are good, because double arcs are good, but Venators kind of really rely on it just because of their dice pool. And so as you can see, I start like chipping the Venator in a little bit sideways so I can get those firing arcs down range. You can see my Y-Wings have, they grouped up, so then it was very difficult to lock all of them down. And if you were to lock them down, maybe one of them would be free, or I would be able to attack, and I'm trying to leverage that Plo Koon ability with Adept to be able to move away, and then Ahsoka with Snipe to try to kill things that are engaged to free up more things. So, as you can see, my fighter ball has started to spread out, and I can go over here and I can bomb, and then lock down and fight the fighters that are there. And then... let's see, the next one is just the continuation, and it's the same thing that we talked about, but ships are disappearing, fighters are dying. And my Venator's just staying in the middle with that, hold on, I always forget what the card is, comms range relay, something like that. The one that gives me, I can activate squadrons up to long distance. I can just sit at the middle of the table and I can activate all my squadrons, pretty much the entire battle area, and send them where I need to be, which is what you want to do. You want to be able to command your squadrons when you're a fighter list relying on all the bomb damage to go through. And that's it. Those are all the pictures. So at the end of this turn, obviously we called it because the farther away hard cell died, and then the Munificent went down on the last attack of the round. So so that's kind of my summary of looking back at this game. This is the last minute, so I don't really have Ken's opinion of what he would have changed or what he would have done differently. Honestly, I would have stuck with pretty much the same thing, maybe swapped out the Pelta in retrospect, looking back at it. So if you guys have any comments or questions about the game, about the ideas that we used, or fleet building, or anything like that, hit me up in the comments. I'm going to be looking at chat now and seeing if anyone has any questions, so give me a sec. Yeah, LTT is kind of like the absolute catch-all to turbo lasers. You actually, though, spoiler, in further episodes, you start seeing me switch heavily from linked turbo laser towers to XI7s, because there's certain circumstances that XI7s are much better. So I think the trifecta of really good turbo laser cards are linked turbo laser towers should be default. It is just good. Reroll, good against squadrons, each attack. It's a great card. Right under that, though, is XI7s. Because if you're not really relying on rerolls, or you already have fighters to do your dirty work against squadrons, or you have some other means to set dice, being able to hard counter redirects is more important. And it allows you to punch through damage very consistently into ships. The third option is the turbo laser reroute. Being able to set to double, it's still such a fantastic card. But that's kind of like that side of strategy. Certain ships like it, certain ships don't. It's stapled still to the Rebel Corvettes. Because you don't have enough dice to really get use out of XI7s. And it can get use out of linked turbo laser towers, but guaranteeing a double or a crit is just so much more useful for the Rebels, I believe. Yes, Munificents are very good, and they are, personal opinion, better than assault frigates. And in company, every single ship in the entire Separatist fleets benefits from LTT, and I think that's one of the reasons why we see it as being so strong, because, don't get me wrong, it is very strong, but all the ships benefit from it. So we have an entire faction that just runs one upgrade card, which kind of actually we have two factions, because the clones also need it because they have no dice mitigation. So we have like a bunch of factions that solely use it, so it looks even stronger than it's already strong. So we have thought about doing more of a time lapse. It just becomes an issue of editing time and just filming it. So it would change the style of film that we do and change our editing time. And we already do a lot of editing and time sunk into that. So it would be difficult. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm live streaming, is so then I can ramble about my thoughts without having to edit it down, and you guys get to enjoy listening to that. And what are going to be normal? I don't know your question, baseball nut. Sorry. That is a good question, what Ken should have done. Musi, he asked, do you think Ken should have tried to engage at long range? And I think the activations is what made it difficult. Having all those deployments for me, being able to drop down, kind of dictates where his ships were, so I got to choose where the battle took place. If you look... Let me go back. He attempted to pin me with this Munificent not Munificent, with the hard cell that's closest to the Munificent, and that's actually a good plan to try to keep me at range. And then if you look at this turn right here, his two hard cells are at range from me, and he's keeping me at long, and then he turns them to turn away to not get into close range with me. So I think that's what he was attempting to do. And between those two turns was a very important activations for me to be able to knock out certain ships to keep my Pelta alive, because I should not have survived with that Pelta, let's just be honest. That thing should have gone down, and should have gone down really, really hard. And I was able to mitigate that and negate him being able to attack it by what I was able to kill on the turn that I did. But it's really hard because I can reach out and hit fighters at long range and move them to attack. So if you think about that, I can activate squadrons at long range and then move them speed 3 from there to attack him. So he needs to be at least close to long to medium range of me to be able to do damage to me successfully. Otherwise, I'm fine just leaving my bombers out there, letting them bomb you without being retaliated against. It's a hard position when deployment kind of dictates how things go. Let me switch to this. Okay, back to chat, see if there's any more questions. Or should he just concentrate fire on the Venator with all ships? Yes, he should have. Killing the Venator would have been a majority of my points, and it would negate my Plo Koon abilities and things like that. But the hard part about killing it is, again, the deployment. I got to choose how to fight it. So something to think about of Spinal versus LTT. LTT is technically cheaper, and Spinal only adds a dice in your front and your rear. And while that's really good, you get that same effect from not Plo Koon. You get that same effect from Martuk. Martuk just adds a dice to any arc, any shot that you do, as long as they have shields. And then you could have LTT for cheaper to reroll and to attack squadrons. Very few cases do I actually use Spinal. The few cases that I use Spinal is if I have a double turbo laser slot. So I could see Spinal being used on a Munificent, and the main place I see Spinals being used is Liberties. And I personally use them on Sato MC30s because then I have 2 red dice out of every single arc that I can then convert over to Sato dice at long range. Okay, I see. You're talking to someone else. Yeah, that Pelta, it survived like 2 turns longer than it should have. Yeah, sorry, my PC fans are crazy. I think part of it is due to the fact that right now I could not find my 50-foot Ethernet cable. And my plan was to like run it out of this room down the staircase to where my modem is. So right now I'm streaming this through one of the little USB drive Wi-Fi adapters. And I don't know if my computer really likes that and live streaming. So also, this isn't a computer that was designed really to be live streaming because, you know, I just have fans to keep it cold. So, okay, I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts. And I think this is kind of like what I wanted to do for future Backseat Admirals. Have a little bit of a John TED Talk of a discussion of ideas for that day for strategy or Armada or gaming in general. And then shift over into discussing my fleets, Ken's fleets, how they perform, what I would change, what I would do. And then, like, for the remainder, for a few minutes, I'm just going to answer questions that you guys have, and then it's like a direct feedback compared to, like, hitting us up on comments, which we'll answer those as well, or hitting us up on Discord, which you guys should join. And if you have ideas for what you want me to talk about, hit me up on Discord or in the comments on any of our videos and let me know, and I'll start like processing how I can talk about different strategies and different things in different builds. What's my favorite ship in the Clone Wars wave? Wow, that is a hard question. I would say definitely for the Separatists, my favorite ship is the Munificent. Munificent's up there for possibly my favorite medium base ship, for sure. Then for the Republic, I might be one of the only crazy people. I actually really like the Acclimator. and the Venator's just a sweet, sweet machine. You can't think of a Venator as a Star Destroyer because it's not. A Venator's a Venator. And it's either, hey, look, I'm a tough Quasar, or I'm a splatter, and I'm going to just throw that token out with the spat, and I'm going to hit you hard from long range. That's kind of how I see the ship, and I love both those builds. What faction would I suggest for a beginner? That is a very hard thing to suggest. Honestly, just all the factions are viable. All the factions are fun, but they all play differently. So you can go into it from two different perspectives. You can go into it with the perspective of, I really like X faction, so play that faction. There's something you can do in that faction that you would enjoy. Or look for a specific style of play and decide factions by that way. So I'll just briefly talk about it. Imperial tend to be high. I'm a very big Alpha Strike-centric fighter build. I will die if you sneeze on me, but that's how I go. I have giant ships. I'm going to have lower activations than other fleets, generally. And I'm going to Alpha Strike my fighters in, and hitting you hard, hitting you fat early is the way of playstyle for the Empire. Rebels tend to be more MSU builds. Their ships are smaller, but they can also do big ships. I think Rebels technically have the most large ships of any faction. And so they're smaller ships, and they need to be more finesse. They'll try to do a lot of flanking, and their fighters are just straight up generalists and bombers, and they're good at that. They are not so much an Alpha Strike list. They are very much a list of, I can outsurvive your Alpha, I will hit you back, and then I'll go start bombing your ships. Gar is kind of the same way. They have fighter builds. I don't think their fighters are anywhere near as good as the fighters for the Rebels. And they don't have really the Alpha Strike potential as the Imperial, so they're this weird hybrid in between. But they're still solid fighters. They're still generalist fighters, though. And then their ships, they kind of are like able to be kitted out however you want. You can make straight up gunline ships, or you can make straight carrier ships, and that's kind of cool. And I enjoy both those playstyles for the Gar. Then you have the CIS, which take the Alpha Strike potential plus I'm a glass cannon to the Empire, and you mix it into, our ships are longer red range dice and can do flanking like the Rebels, but they're slower. So just choose a play style, choose what you look right in the factions, and you can make a list or get ideas for a list to do pretty much any of those things in any of the different factions, and there's really no wrong way to play that. Good. I'm glad people are enjoying this, and I've enjoyed this, so I'm going to probably continue it. My plan is it's going to be an every Sunday/Monday/Tuesday/ depending on how my life goes type of thing. So I'll keep posted with Facebook and Discord and our other social media of when this next episode would be. But right now, without saying for sure, it will probably be next Sunday, the 8th, that I would do another episode of Backseat Admiral. Just because of life and work and things like that. What's my favorite combo I've ever pulled off? Okay, so this is me being me. And sometimes I'm surprised that Ken and I are still friends. But this wasn't against Ken. This is against one of my friends. I finally got to play him for the first time in almost 2 years. His name's Jack. He's part of the Fair Game group that I play at. And him and I love playing each other because we're both like, let's sit down, let's joust. The other day when I played him, we were joking that we were going to be done in 20 minutes. It was a little bit longer than that, but we were done way before everyone else because we're just here to throw down ships and shoot. And that's what we did. So right when the Super Star Destroyer came out, you can't get your ship out guys came up with this idea. It's called monster trucks, and it's basically just big and medium ships and like limited fighters, and it's just the whole table is covered with, I think it's like 600, 800 points worth of ships. And you just shoot each other apart, and it's a lot of fun. So I knew everyone was going to bring Super Star Destroyers. And because of the point range, you could actually bring the Executor class, which are tanky ships and very powerful ships. And I brought this I Hate SSD list, and it was like 2 interdictors, a handful of decimators because you were able to bring some generic squadrons, and like 3 ISDs, one of them being a Psy Moon so I could get Intensify Firepower, because at that point range you really need Intensify Firepower. And then I think 2 Kuats? Don't quote me, it's been a while. And with so many ships, I actually had a lot of activations compared to everyone else. So the whole strategy of this was to put the 2 interdictors that I had so that I could double arc in one turn and use disposable capacitors to throw blue dice at long range. And then use overloaded pulse to overload pulse all of the SSD's tokens. And then after that, I would move in one of my Star Destroyers. Actually, I know what it was. I had ISD 1s for the reason I needed the squadron value. And I had boarding troopers on it. So it was like turn 1, I took this huge hit from the Executor Super Star Destroyer. And then I was going speed 3 right into it. So then I had to mitigate that damage on the next turn. And then I overloaded pulsed all of the defense tokens. And then I discarded them with boarding troopers. So on turn 2, the Super Star Destroyer only had, I think, 1 contain token left, just because of all the nonsense shenanigans that I pulled. And then I pumped damage in it with all the other ships, and I killed an Executor class ship on the first activation of turn 3. I think that was probably my favorite combo. And Jack was a trooper, and he did that. I'm like, I'm really sorry. And everyone's like, John, you gotta let people just want to play with their big ships. I'm like, I know, but that's why I brought a second list, and we can just do this for real now, because that was just, I just wanted to kill a Super Star Destroyer, the bigger version, in less than like 3 turns, and I was able to do that. So we just re-racked, and we played, like, I brought like a normal, not really jank fleet, and then he just obliterated me with the super, which is what he wanted to do. I got to do what I wanted to do, he did what he wanted to do, so that was a lot of fun. Let's go back to comments after that story. Yes, the Venator, very much so, is what a Quasar wishes it was. And Quasars honestly should just be flying like around the map, no combat. If you're shooting with your Quasar, something has gone horribly wrong. So, to explain swivel-mounted batteries. Swivel-mounted batteries say that you put the token on the front of your ship. You attack. Right, so you gather, let's just pretend it's on a Acclimator 1. So normally at long range you have 3 red dice. So you gather 3 red dice up, you shake them up, you roll them. After you roll them is when you can modify dice, which is when add effects take place. Swivel mount says that you can add into the arc that has the swivel mount on it a dice that's coming from the adjacent hull zones. So the adjacent hull zones on an Acclimator have red and black dice. Your choice. Dice range only matter when it's initially the pool is drawn. So you measure range. Long range says only red dice. So you can't add blacks. But during an add effect, you can add whatever color you want because it's an add. So you can then say, I'm going to add in a black dice. And then you take a black dice and you can add it to your pool. And now because there is a black dice added into your pool, things like Concentrate Fire and such can actually add those dice into it as well. So hopefully that answers your question on that, Daniel. What's the most balanced faction? It's probably Rebels and Imperial because they've been fleshed out more. They both break the game in different ways, so that is difficult to say between the two. I would say that I prefer Empire, so we'll just go with the Empire. I think the Empire is more balanced, I guess, but the Rebels actually can counter and do most of the things that the Empire can't do. The Separatists and the Republic are still newer factions, and there's not as much out right now, but I feel like because they were designed with the idea of like 1.5 in mind, they are more balanced against each other because there's less like fringe rule interactions because they were actually thought about. The game now being across so many different waves and so many different developers has developed a lot of someone meant this, but now it means this, but it could mean that, while the newer factions were designed and looked at everything. Hopefully that answers your question on that. Well, thank you very much for turning in, and yes, we do plan on doing more of these. Yes, blowing each other up with big ships is a lot of fun. I know Ken and I have talked about doing a monster truck game, which is just bigger ships. So we might eventually see that on the channel. Bigger games are very difficult to do. So a normal game of Armada you can and should be able to get done with in like 2 hours. Filming Armada takes us about 3 to 4 to 5 sometimes hours, just because camera positions, battery dying, taking breaks. We talk through a lot of what we do beforehand, so then we get the right thing. So sometimes I joke, we're not playing Armada, we're recording Armada, because it's technically two different things. And then when you start getting into these bigger games, like 6 activations with fighters, 7 activations with fighters. If you go up to like the absurdity of like I think 1,200 point games, you could be looking at on a side 15 plus activations. That just takes forever to film. Like when you think about this game, so there's 3 activations on my side, 4 on Ken, so each round, if nothing dies, is 7, so over 6 scores, we're looking at 42 activations for the whole game. Well, if you each have 10 plus activations, then you finished the entire normal amount of filming clips within like the first 2 rounds, and that becomes pretty hard to do. Yeah. So concentrate fire is a add after the fact, Daniel. So if it's already in your dice pool, then you can add that type of dice into it. So that's where actually things like the thermal shields become very powerful. So normally, let's say, again, let's just go back to an Acclimator 2. You have red dice and you have black dice. Thermal shields could say, get rid of all your black dice at close range, and now you're not able to concentrate fire in a black dice, because when you roll, you can't add it in. And so you just have to be aware of, honestly, the timing for attack. And maybe that's what I'll do in the next video. I'll talk about attack sequence. Maybe. I'll think about it. But yeah, you just have to make sure that you're following the steps properly. So, Michael, I don't know if you were here earlier in our conversation when we were talking about Shamay. Tykes I actually like. He needs specific type of builds. I feel that he can be very useful on like a flagship with Intensify Firepower. If you're planning on just doing the same type of command every single round, because then he just puts a token on himself, takes the command, then he takes any token that he wants. I'm not a huge fan of Shumai, or however you say her name, because I hate having to predict what rounds to use things on, because I almost guarantee that it will be useless that round. Yeah, it takes about 3 to 5 hours to record a single game. And that's not even looking at editing time. So I pretty much primarily edit all of the Armada videos. Ken pretty much edits anything that's not Armada on our channel. And Ken's a wizard with everything he does. So you can thank him for all the nice graphics and slides and pictures. He does all of that for us, and he does a wonderful job at it. And so big thanks out to Ken, because he does some excellent work. So it'll probably take him, guesstimating, for each episode an hour to get all the fleets and all the damage and all the slides put together. And then it takes me probably 2 to 3 hours to edit any given video to the level that we do. And then I have to put Ken's stuff in, so add like another 30 minutes to that. So recording 3 to 5 hours, then Ken and I together, that's like another 3 to 5 hours worth of editing, and then we upload it, and then you guys get to see it. So each video is probably a minimum of 8 to 12 hours worth of time that we do this. So that's one of the reasons why this is just way easier for me to get thoughts out if I do a live stream than try to write, record, edit. And this is another thing. When you're recording and you're talking to no one and not communicating with someone, a lot of times you just have to repeat it because it doesn't sound right, and you want it to sound right the first time. So to answer your question, Canadian Bear, have you thought about converting the campaign to Clone Wars or thought about making your own? The answer is yes. We've thought about it a lot. Sadly, the last campaign kind of burnt us both out for campaigns for the time being. Because we want to have fun producing content. Because if we're not having fun, you can tell we're not having fun. And then you guys aren't having fun. And no one wants to watch something that's not fun. And so right now we've kind of taken a break back. We've switched over to the season idea, because then we can do a whole season, and then if we decide if we want to do something completely different, we can do something completely different. But campaign ideas, Clone Wars campaign ideas, is something that I think Ken and I talk about every single time we get together, because we both enjoy the concepts and the ideas of it. It's just finding what works the best, and then how we can present that to you guys as an audience, as content creators. So thank you very much for all the support that you guys are giving us in the comments. Ken and I both appreciate all of the support that we've gotten from the community. We feel that we've grown a really good community. We love interacting with all of you guys on all of our videos. We've actually met quite a few people out pre-COVID and now again post-COVID, out in the wild, if you would. And we're just two normal guys. So when people are like, oh my gosh, you're John from Ion Radio, it's kind of takes you aback, because I do this for fun, and it just so happens people watch it. So we appreciate it, and part of that keeps us going with making content. Let's see. Also, big shout out to everyone that has subscribed. We've hit 2,000 subscribers, and we're both super excited about that. We anywhere in our dreams did we think that we would hit that many people that wanted to, 1, watch us, 2, listen to me ramble, because I could do this all night. So I'm going to take a few more questions, and we've already gone like an hour and a half, so I'm going to wrap it up in the next few minutes. So if you have any questions, get it in the comments. I'll go through it, and then I'll probably wrap it up. How do you counter a CIS heavy squadron fleet? Every time it's been Republic with medium small squads, I just get demolished. If I don't have a squadron heavy fleet for CIS, I die. Thoughts? So the droid faction as I like to call it, is really good at being droids. So you can build a fleet with tons of cheap squadrons, and if you activate them, they're good. And if you leave them there, they're good. I don't know what type of fighters they're bringing. The Tri-Fighters, I think, are some of the best squadrons in the game. They hit really, really hard. They have counters, so you don't want to attack them. And then they have that black dice that they can get that almost like just guarantee damage against ships. So it's very difficult to counter. But they have very low health. Across all of the squadrons for the CS, they have low health. So flak, 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 flak. Most of the Republic ships have double flak. So as soon as they get in close, double flak. And again, if you have LTTs, just double down. Even a single die flak and LTT and a concentrate fire is 4 dice. And you should be able to knock out almost any of the Separatist fighters with that. And even if you just plink one off. But if you do that every single turn and you plink one of fighters off, most people aren't bringing more than 8 fighters. With multiple ships, you should be able to kill all their squadrons. And if that's the primary way that they're trying to deal damage, then they won't be able to deal damage after that. Or if they have a single ship that is their carrier, go after that. Just hardcore go after that ship to kill it off. The difference, I think, between Separatist swarming and like Imperial swarming and even Rebels to a point is most of the time Imperial and Rebel lists highly rely on their flotillas as activations and squadron pushers. And if you kill their big ships, they're just gone. Because tabling rules means if you only have flotillas on the board, they're gone. The CIS does not have that problem, which actually makes them stronger at fighter swarming. So they could just fly a ship off in one direction, and then you have to deal with their fighters. So you have to make a decision. Do you deal with the fighters by flacking it, or if you go after their ships? And sometimes it's better to spend 1 or 2 turns killing off all the fighters, because that's just free points, and their fighters can be stuck there. That's why a lot of times you see me running ordnance pods, because if I have 2 ships with ordnance pods, and they both move and your fighters are both near me, that is a 2 dice against each of those squadrons, and if they're CIS, then theoretically in 2 turns I've killed off all your squadrons with free attacks. So that's my recommendation. So I straight up believe AI bombers are rough. They're red dice, so I personally don't know what that feels like or looks like from my end, because they're never going to turn up damage. A long-range snipe list. So by a long-range snipe list, do you mean like a Simoon or Munificent, like a gunline, or are you talking about an onager? Because those are 2 different lists. If you're facing like a gunline, being a brawler is really good, because then you can go in there and just brawl them down with your heavy dice loads and punching damage through. Onagers, you need fast ships that can jump around them, like MC-30s. Or you need ships that can just straight out, I don't care if you shoot me, I'm going to tank it, and then I'm going to be in your grill. Kind of like a Starhawk. Most Star Destroyers can do it. It's a lot of just like calculating in your head, how much damage can I take before I get in range. So that's how I would face down most sniper lists. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it here. This has been the first episode of Backseat Admiral. I hope you turn in next week again. Probably, tentatively speaking, it will be Sunday. I'll figure out what time I want to do it later on. And I'll post that to our Discord and to our Facebook page. I'll just post it everywhere when I'm expecting that. So I'm excited for this next fleet battle next week, and there will probably be a lot to discuss about. in that. So now you have something to do. You can watch our episode, come up with questions, and then come here and ask me directly what I would have done differently or why I did what I did. So if you don't know, we have a Discord, and it's linked in our channel page. You can come join us. Ken and I are both on there, and you can talk to us. And we also have a Patreon if you would like to support us with monies. You can join us. There's also a link on our channel for that too, and we have some perks, and we take fleet suggestions and things like that. Go check it out if you want to. Biggest way to support us, though, is just watch our videos. Tell people that you like us and that you watch us, and thumbs up the video. That's really the best. Subscribe. Look at this, 2,000 subscribers. I'm so excited about that. So thank you very much for watching. I'm John, and this has been Ion Radio.